It's important to understand which decision criteria the customer is using to base their evaluation on is important to which specific stakeholders. So knowing the criteria and knowing which stakeholders they're important to. But why is this important? It's important because you can tailor your discussions with each individual person to the areas that matter most to them. It sounds basic, but in practice, it's amazing how many salespeople fail to do this. They turn up with a boilerplate presentation, a canned pitch, or a PowerPoint deck, and they give it the same way to each person they meet, hoping that the value of it will be inherently obvious to everybody that watches it or listens to it. You know better than that. You know that certain things resonate with people differently, and that's what you need to focus on as you're selling your solutions to your customers. Let's say that I take my family to buy a new family car. Now, I'm busy talking to the sales rep, and I'm interested in things like the appearance of the car, because sometimes I need to take clients to lunches and I don't want them getting in a car that's too small or too difficult to get into. I want it to look like it's got a little bit of pizzazz on the dashboard, so it looks like I'm upwardly mobile. I want it to look good. My son is interested in what the stereo is focused on. You know, how good is the stereo? Is it got big woofers and tweeters? Can he fill the back of the car with massive speakers? Is it that customizable? Does it have all the latest gizmos for syncing with their iPhones and smartphones and so forth? He's interested more in the technical side. I'm looking at my daughter, and she's not so much interested in the car, but she's quite interested in getting to know the sales rep that is trying to sell to us. Maybe he'll take her for dinner sometime to help me influence my decision. She's quite interested in that. But my wife isn't interested in any of these things. She's thinking about whether this would be an appropriate second vehicle for the family in case she needs to do the school run or in case she needs to take it shopping and so forth. So my two-seater convertible that I'm looking at isn't really going to suit. Now, even though I might be the one who writes the check, there are other people, i.e. my wife, who has a heavy influence on whether I'm going to get the car that I want or whether I'm going to have to make certain concessions to make it something that the rest of the family can work with. And so the skilled salesperson might be talking to me about, you know, how the car, any car, will do for working with my customers and the impression that I want to give, but he's going to quite cleverly figure out where the flow of decision really comes from, and he's going to be focusing on aspects such as safety, such as utility, such as value for money, such as multi-purpose. And focusing on those decision criteria with my wife is the type of approach that is going to tick all the boxes for her, even though they're not important to my son and certainly not important to my daughter, and only some of them are relatively important to me. So the key here in selling is to figure out what are all the decision criteria, of course, but which decision criteria are most important to certain people, and which of those people are likely to be the ones most likely to influence the final decision. Hammer those criteria home and show how you're compliant to them. Make helpful suggestions around them. Show that you're a thought leader in that space. And the people who ultimately will affect the decision will say, here's a salesperson that gets it, understands my need, and is really adding value. I think I trust them. I think I can see myself being in business with them. But you can't do any of that unless you start asking the questions to say, how will you be making the decision? Who owns each of these criteria? And which people is it most important to? It's relatively simple to ask those questions quite straightforward. Once you get that information, you will be primed to do a great job at selling the right value to the right people.